At Salesforce, and we're here at UberConf 2023. And we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of what you're here to talk about, what you're here to learn. And I would love to get into some modern enterprise architecture talks with you as well. I was an enterprise architect previous to my moving into more field CTO and advocacy type of roles. And so I'm super curious to hear about, what are enterprise architects kind of thinking about these days. So maybe you could kind of tell us a little bit about what you're here to talk about, a little bit about your role, and then we can get into some of those details.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Justin, for bringing it all together. So think about from my perspective, first of all, why we want to understand the enterprise architecture. Why do we want to even have an architecture to begin with? Now, people already started with when they started working on the journey, the first thing what they were trying to do is hey, they want to do the waterfall. Let's do the waterfall, and everything has to be designed first. And then it came up agile. Now it's come up with agile to the point let's design it for next 2 weeks. Really, that does not scale well. If I'm talking about the enterprise architecture, the CEO and the CTOs who are asking us the question, and me and every one of us, is the question, what's the vision looks like for the next 1 to 2 years? And 3 to 5 years is the horizon. So you have to start preparing yourself for the future. So if you don't prepare for the future, and that's where I come in, I work on the transformation projects, millions of dollars projects which are there. And their main purpose is really to solve the customer need. And what I find is that people try to solve a problem, but they have not gone through the exercise of understanding the need state of the customer. And that's where my talks really come in, and what I try to tell people, hey, understand the customer really well. And that means understanding their pain points, understanding their journey, what their journey looks like. So that's where I spend time understanding the need state, and that helps me prepare the architecture for that particular customer.
That's really interesting, actually, because I guess when I was coming up, we had TOGAF, and the whole idea was, as an architect, your job is to build the bridge between the business and the needs of the business and what the software infrastructure can provide. But a lot of this was pre-DevOps commoditization, and now we know that gathering that feedback and using it to inform our planning is really an essential part of making sure that we're doing DevOps the right way. So maybe tell me a little bit about that. What do you do to gather this feedback from your customers? And then how, so many software companies, I feel like we gather this feedback, but then we don't necessarily have the best ways of making it actionable. So I'd love to hear from you, how do you use that title and that role to do this?
Exactly. So one thing, before we start diving into that, the most important thing in any software development is to understand the project. What do we really want to do at any given time? And the problem which always comes in is that, hey, I want to solve this, and I want to solve this. And basically you want to solve the whole earth problem at that same time. And have you seen the diagrams where you have seen, take pride of writing a diagram, huge, big diagrams. And this is our enterprise looks like it. And that is where the real problem comes in. So the first thing is, how can I make the architecture simple? Simple to understand from the business perspective. So when I'm talking to a CFO, I should be able to communicate myself what is the architecture at their level. And that is what the real problem is. Yes, we have TOGAF, and that actually gives us a good direction. And it's more document heavy. But the thinking from the layers perspective, you want to have the layers in place, so making sure CFOs, CIOs, they're able to understand the need state. And that is what is called as a level 1 diagram. We can call it instead of giving every detail you can think of, what are the capabilities you are looking for? But the problem is not that. The problem really is that capabilities are just one part of the puzzle. But before the capabilities start, what are your objectives? What are your goals? And, I see transformation projects where there are business units, United States, Europe, and other places, they have different objectives. Because they have different objectives, now they have different business drivers to work through. So first thing we need to do is, and in Salesforce we call it V2MOM, to be able to create a common goals and vision for our objectives. Because if everybody is looking at the same elephant from different angles is fine, but they're looking at different elephants at the same time. So the first thing is, what are your business drivers? Everybody agrees on the goals and the objective and the vision for the project. Once that is determined, now it becomes easy. Now I'm excited. Now we know where everybody is going. Now, the next step on that process is to come up with the business capabilities. So think from the business capability perspective. And this is where I really find very important understanding is that for core capabilities have not changed in last 40 years, 50 years. They have not changed. Banks have the same core capabilities. Now, we may add new capability. For example, Elon Musk can say that, hey, I want to now venture into AI and do something else. Like Meta, now I want to venture into other products, but the core capabilities remains the same. So that means that there are well-defined core capabilities from enterprise architecture perspective for each of the domains, healthcare, retail, and other domains which have been done. Now, first thing we need to do is to make sure that the team knows where they stand on that level. Like, where are they? Are on the scale of 1 to 5, are they at 2.5? Where is your assessment looks like? And that's where the problem comes in. So that's where I start. Like, when I talk to many customers like CTOs and CEOs and CIOs, I want to make sure, I want to give them an assessment. Hey, you are currently at 2.3. I said, oh, that's a number. You can quantify that number. That is coming out of our assessment. Now they know this is what the things they need to work on to improve. And that's the way I go.
That really simplifies a lot. I mean, you're talking about it as if this is easy. Yeah, we know that this is like one of the biggest things that businesses struggle with is aligning on priorities. Exactly. What feature should we work on? How do we assess, the return on investment for this feature in the first place? So I want to dig into that a little bit more. Like, I mean, how do you resolve conflicts where I wouldn't say working at cross purposes necessarily, but where one business function might say, no, we need it to work this way, and another business function says, no, it's got to be that way. Who's the tiebreaker? Who makes the decision? And then how do you make sure that the teams, even though they may not necessarily agree with that direction, are still aligned and putting their passion and their urgency into the work?
Exactly. So the first thing which is very important in this whole process makes it much easier. It starts from the business drivers. What do you really want to do? Do you want to increase the revenue? Do you want to decrease the cost? And those things are the KPIs. And then based on those KPIs, we might be recommending them 10 things to do. Now we ask the business owners to take the ownership and prioritize those. And then that prioritization, and I have some situations like this where you have to run 3 or 4 parallel runs. So those are parallel programs going on to really solve that problem. So that's what you need to do. You need to run parallel to really solve, some of these things. Now, the budget is the same. Budget constraint is always there. So what our job is to look at and sequence it out. So instead of saying that, oh, we will not do this or that, let's prioritize it, and then we will sequence. In order to do this, in order to have something in place, you have to have these baby steps you need to take. You need to put the foundation in place. So you have to give that kind of confidence to the team, saying that, hey, once the foundation is there, now you can crawl, walk, and run. So we try to give different approaches for these kind of problems, which certainly always comes.
No, that's. I mean, again, you make it sound so easy, and we know it's not. But it seems like, it really just has to be. Listen, we've got to put this from a business driver perspective, but it also sounds like it's really important to have things be measurable. Now, I could see this cutting down on, like, I would say probably like a tremendous amount of organizational chaos, right? I mean, the resulting problem when you have many business units and many business functions. To your point, looking at different parts of the elephant. The risk there is that people go off and do things that are misaligned, and you end up with a very chaotic set of priorities. That can have, in many cases, I think, a cascading impact on the overall productivity at that organization, even down to the individual developer, because there's cognitive load involved in figuring out what should I work on today. So at scale, do you think that that's a fair statement? Do you think that putting this type of prioritization in place actually makes your developers be able to be more productive?
More productive. So think about that perspective. So you're trying to do V2MOM, which is the vision. Now that V2MOM is not for the CIO and CTO. So the perspective is then it goes down to the business units. Now they are going to copy that V2MOM and they're going to create their own V2MOM based on the priorities which are from the CEO. And they are going down another level to the VP level, and that's going down to all the architects level. Now what's happening is everybody's talking the same language. The problem comes in when you exactly what you're saying. If they don't all talk the same language across the board, like for example, in Salesforce, we have Mark Benioff.
Sure.
He has his own V2MOM. Based on his V2MOM, I can see his V2MOM.
Wow.
Like, the advantage there is now we know what direction the other people needs to go, and this is an open concept anybody can adopt, but that certainly fits really well with business canvas. See, the business canvas is what the business is doing currently. That means you have the revenue, you have cost structure, and you have revenue structure, and based on your channels you're selling these services and products to the customer. Yeah, based on certain sales principles and the marketing principles which you're doing through. Now, what we need to do is looking at those V2MOMs, how we transform the current business canvas into new business canvas, doing a what if analysis. Now, when I do a what if analysis, now I say that, if I spend more time, for example, Uber now is going to getting into Uber Eats and to certain other areas. What are they really solving? If you think about it, demand and supply. They're solving demand and supply. They actually combine both of them together, and they are trying to add a new channel. What they're doing is they are looking at the journey map of the customer and looking at wherever there is a problem, where they're not feeling good, what services and products they can disrupt and create to really make that up. So for example, like, aged people are coming in. Now, aged people, they're all having problems, so many pills they have to eat. How about I give you in a packet all the information, and then you just have to open the packet at a prescribed time, which I have an app to tell you when to open that packet. You eat that, you're good to go. You don't have to do anything. The new pharmacy products are coming up because of that. Capability is the same. We are delivering medicines to the customer. You don't have to now go to CVS, but you just order it online and it's all packet ready to go. So those are the new services. How do you disrupt the market? Is exactly by doing that. So enterprise architecture is to disrupt the market.
That's, I even having been an enterprise architect for a fair amount of time in my career, I never thought about it being a disrupting force, right? It was always kind of more, change agent, right? Helping to make sure that everybody is aligned, making sure that if people need, another set of technical eyes on a problem, that it's there. But in terms of actually being able to reasonably create those new disruptive channels for delivering, to your point, the same types of products that we've always been delivering.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's certainly a goal of a digital transformation, I would say.
Yes.
So I want to pivot a little bit. I mean, I could talk to you about this stuff all day, but I also know that, you're giving another talk on code efficiency.
Yes,
and
absolutely,
at Gradle, and especially around our developer productivity engineering practice and around our Gradle Enterprise product, we have this philosophy that looks at taking engineering approaches to improving the productivity of a business by effectively just eliminating sources of friction and frustration from the developer, right? But it's not the full story, right? There's so many things that we can do around productivity. So maybe tell me sort of, I guess specifically, what are some actionable things that people who are listening to this right now can take away to become more efficient coders today?
Absolutely. So the first thing which you see, whenever somebody is getting any problem, what do we do first thing? If you go to the Google and find out that, what Einstein is saying, ChatGPT also, go to ChatGPT and try to find it. Einstein is saying, understand the problem well. So if you, just one thing, ask the right questions. What are the input? What are the constraints which you are going to go through? What are the output? What are the constraints for the output? And is it only one application calling me? What are the multiple applications calling me? So the problem which comes in is we come up with a solution and then we don't know who's using it. And then that's where the inefficiency comes in the design. So inefficiency is not in the intent of the developer. Developer wants to go to Google and write the code, and then cut, paste, and try to do it as quick as possible. ChatGPT or generative AI, they can use certainly to solve some of the coding problems, challenging which is there. But that's not the main problem. The main problem is understanding, hey, we have done algorithm from past, like our golden days, like 20 years, 30, 10 years before we did that. But really, we never looked at where are we using these algorithms. We never looked at what are the transformation going on in the algorithms. Like, should we use a shortest path? In this case, should we use a tree to solve a problem? Should we use an array to solve a problem? But the main thing is not this. The main problem, what I have seen, most of the code problem is my code is O of n.
Sure.
So the problem is, this is where all the problem coming in. This microservice will O of n, but that microservice calling another microservice calling another microservice.
Now
what's happening? N cube.
Yes.
And then that's what the real problem coming in. What I have seen is the code complexity. Exactly. Thanks for helping out with this static analysis which are there. But even if the codes are distinct, now these are separate libraries, not connected to each other. But really speaking, that's where the distributed architecture comes in. When you are working on distributed services, there you have to make sure what's the response time looks like. It's the main thing is the response time. Can you guess how much money that Amazon loses? 1 second delay in the latency.
Oh my gosh.
How much money they lose?
It must be, I would have to wager that's at least in the hundreds of thousands, if not above that.
It's more than hundreds of thousands. Wow. It's more than 500,000.
Because that revenue stream is so constant.
It's more than 1 billion.
What?
It's $1.5 billion they lose.
Every second?
Not every second, for that day.
Oh, I see, for the day.
What they're trying to
that
do.
Is
yeah.
staggering.
There's still a lot of money which they are trying to lose, which they're going to. The 1% of the sale, like they say that if they put a delay, in 2007 they did a study, they put a delay of 100 millisecond, 1% of sale they lose.
Holy
There's
moly.
a lot of money which is coming out of the pocket. The problem comes in like when we say that, oh, my microservice just takes 2 seconds to return. Really, that's where the problem is. The customer should get it right away. And that's where we need to spend time. Responsiveness needs to be less than 250 millisecond response time. Now, I call it, and anybody who is viewing me right now, repeat with me. If you're not repeating, repeat with me right now. Microsecond is new millisecond. The main thing is the microsecond is a new millisecond.
Love that.
That's a different way of thinking.
Love
the way
that.
you think the pub/sub model, which old pub/sub model is Kafka stream.
Sure.
You do a Kafka stream and then you're able to do that. No, microsecond is new millisecond. You have to do the pub/sub model, where? In cache.
Sure.
Redis cache. You have to use the Redis cache to do that. Now, old ways, not that old, 4 years, MongoDB used to get the values, which is document DB, and select those values. The new way, what's the new way? New way is put that in the Redis.
Yes.
And do all the fuzzy searches using that JSON object. You can put it in and start using it. Every database is converging right now and making sure the code efficiency improves, because every database is able to solve geospatial coordinates, pub/sub model, and be able to do the JSON also. And then you can search based on that. So that's what I'm excited about, where now everybody is trying to do the responsiveness, because you have to worry about the bounce rate. Now, bounce rate is the customer is not going to wait for more than 1 second on your side to buy something or be able to work through the value which you're doing. So wherever there is a low point, wherever there is a value chain is when you're trying to assess that customer. When you're assessing that customer, and wherever there is a low point, certainly that's where you need to work on responsiveness and be able to put a resilient architecture for yourself.
No, that's, and you're so right, because I mean, all of our systems are so distributed now. We tend to think of one part of it, but we have to think about the cumulative delay that comes when we put all these things together. Well, and when I was doing enterprise architecture, a lot of the work that I was doing was federation, older technologies, last generation JMS stuff like ActiveMQ and Camel. But I always talked about how, listen, garbage collection matters, because if you're passing 1 million messages a second, you have to be thinking at the microsecond level. But I love the way that you put that. I think that's the takeaway today. Microsecond is the new millisecond. So Rohit, thank you so much for taking your time today to do this interview. This is fascinating. I could really spend a lot of time talking with you. How do you like to be found? How can people reach out to you and talk to you about this?
Hey, you connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm easily available there. I have my website also, Productive Cloud Innovation. You can reach me out there also. And I am planning to write a book on systems design, and that's coming out. And one of the pattern is a hurricane pattern, which is going to help out in some of the resilient architecture which is coming in. Just like the hurricane, you're preserving the hurricane, you prepare for the hurricane. Just like the way to look at it. So that's my, if you're level 1, remove the things, services which you don't need for at that time. Level 2, level 3, level 5 means have only core services in place to support that.
As a Floridian especially, I appreciate this system. I think that's really good. Hey, Rohit, thank you. We'll look forward to your book and learning more about hurricane architecture. Microsecond is the new millisecond. And enjoy the rest of the show.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rohit. Take care.
See you.
Bye, all.